Impact Driven Entrepreneur, episode 50, How to Streamline Your Customer Journey with guest expert Kelly Garrett. So excited to dive in.
Welcome to the Impact Driven Entrepreneur, the podcast that helps you expand your reach and convert that reach into clients so you can lead your tribe with confidence and create change in the world while living the life you desire. And now your host, certified business coach and consultant, Mariana Ruiz.
Hi, welcome everybody to the Impact Driven Entrepreneur. Today we have a special guest, Kelly Garrett. She is the founder and master of marketing at Etc. Designs and Marketing. She places herself in the customer's shoes and helps companies to create a cohesive customer journey to elevate fragmented, inconsistent marketing, making it easier for business owners to focus on what you do best. So excited to have you here, Kelly, and to really talk about kind of what you do and a little bit more about this customer journey and how to make that experience really, really beautiful for your clients. So can you tell us a little bit how you got started and what brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I have been kind of a natural marketer, entrepreneur my whole life. I was the kid who was coming up with not just lemonade stands, but, different products and things to sell in my neighborhood, and got very interested in design and technology at a very early age. And so it's just kind of always been something that has been an interest. And it's very easy to put myself in other people's shoes. So just part of my personality, I'm very, empathetic. I can relate to people well. And so when I'm working on marketing for a company, I'm constantly asking myself, what is their customer experiencing? What's the message that they're receiving? And so I'm able to kind of bridge that gap with companies to help them, view things from a different perspective, from the perspective of their customers.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And can you tell us a little bit more about some of the mistakes with this inconsistent marketing? Like, what does that look like? What might be some symptoms that somebody might be experiencing if they're having that?
Absolutely. Just from a visual standpoint, it's pretty easy to pinpoint incongruent marketing. So if you look at, someone's funnel, if you go to a opt-in page, the design might not carry through to the thank you page and then to the website, and just the visual look can be inconsistent. And that is one of the easiest things to spot and the easiest things to fix from a congruency standpoint. And what that does is it gives a subliminal kind of message to the customer that, they may not be able to identify exactly what isn't right, but just have this feeling like, something's just a little bit off. I may not quite trust this business the way I should. And so that's a very, very basic thing. But then going even deeper, it's looking at the experience after someone purchases to, okay, now what experience am I having while I'm working with the business? And I think that oftentimes as marketers, we get very caught up in the funnel and the pre-sale and actually the sale itself, that we put all of our energy and focus there. But once we've actually closed a deal with somebody and they become a customer, then it's like, okay, now we can take a sigh of relief. We got the hard part out of the way. And then our service tends to slack a little bit. And that's where we can start to lose the customer. And so, part of what makes a very cohesive, seamless customer journey for someone is when the feeling that they get before the purchase relationship happens, and the relationship starts the very first time they see you. So it's not just about the relationship after the transaction, but from the moment they first see you, that relationship that you're building is something that just constantly grows and grows and grows and builds upon itself. It should never switch gears. It should never all of a sudden feel differently, because a business is a living, breathing organization, much like, we're humans, and that's how our personal relationships work. We're not going to one day wake up and have a completely different personality with our friends than we did the day before. And so businesses shouldn't have that either.
Yeah. And what do you say to somebody who has a little bit of fear of being truly themselves? Like, I so experienced this in my business, because I have kind of like this dual personality, and my people have heard about this. Like, no, I don't have schizophrenia or something like that. But basically I have like this loving, caring side to myself. And then I have this like fierce business owner, get down and dirty with business and get it done. So, and my background is a nurse. So actually that worked really well in my nursing days. But here, right, it really was a struggle, because I, would compare myself to like what other coaches were doing, or even what I was trained and certified as a coach to be able to do and support people. And I wasn't really allowed to bring in some of my fear side into my coaching, right? So how does one fully embrace that aspect of who they truly are, so that there's that congruence, right, with that marketing on the front end?
So I kind of have 4 steps to make that happen. And the first is to know yourself. And what that looks like is really digging deep and identifying what you as a business owner or a coach or a service provider, what you really provide and what you really bring to the table. And that is something that comes over time. Some people may be more confident about that than others. And if that's an area that you don't necessarily feel confident in, the first thing to do is do some work there and dig really deep and figure out, what is it that I can provide that no one else can provide? And everybody has something. You may be in an industry where there's a lot of overlap and there's a lot of noise, and other people do what you do, but you still can offer and provide something that no one else can. So the first step is to really get to know yourself, get to know the value that you bring to the table, what you do differently than other people, and how you do that. Then the second step is to know your customer and know what they want. So once you've solidified and grounded yourself in who you are, then really get to know your customer, understand what their problems are, understand what a solution looks like for them. So what transformation are they looking for? What's their starting point, their A, and what's the Z that they're looking for, or that they may not even know what Z is for them. They just know they have a problem. So really understanding and knowing that. And then after you've identified those 2 things, knowing yourself, knowing your customers, then it's all about communicating clearly how you can understand them and you can meet their needs. And if you really kind of break it down into that and really simplify it in that way, it becomes a lot easier. It becomes a lot clearer on how to get over your fears, because the fears become more visible, and you can start to work on having the confidence where you need to have the confidence.
Love that. Love that. And what do you think is kind of like, once they've got that, they've figured out kind of like their message, their, what they're great at and their clients, like, what do you feel is, like next for those people?
Yeah. So I think then it comes down to, so basically on a simplistic level, once you know yourself, you know your customers, then you've basically got your strategy to an extent. There's still some things you need to figure out with packaging and pricing and how all of that is going to flow together. But once you have that, you just get this really solidified sense of, wow, okay, I've got clarity. I know where I'm headed. I know what this is supposed to look like. And then it's a matter of just putting the pieces down on the table. And so that's when you bring in technology. That's when you just execute on the plan and don't stop at the point of sale. So many people that are teaching marketing and all of the marketing that we're learning about out there is heavily, heavily focused on lead generation, funnels, and it just stops at the sale. But your customer has an experience far beyond that. And like I said earlier, that's a part of the relationship. So if we fail to continue to reiterate to the customer how we are helping them, how we understand them after the sales process, we're doing both of us a huge injustice because, or a huge disservice, because we need to constantly remind them. Our customers have fears as they work with us. And the point at which they purchase from us is probably the point at which they have their highest fear. So they're forking over their money, and it's money that they've earned, and they don't know yet what the results of working with you are going to be. So that's not the point to stop trying to comfort them and trying to show them that we understand what they're going through. That's the time when we need to step it up and say, okay, now you've put something out there, you've given me money. Now it's time to really continue to show you that this is going to work out. We're going to be able to help you. We understand what you need, and just continue to foster that relationship. So, kind of going back to your question, I mean, I think once you have that strategy in place, not stopping at the sale and taking a look at what the relationship looks like through the entire relationship, even after you're done working with them, and how you can continue to support them after you've worked with them. Once you have a really clear picture of that, then it becomes a matter of execution, getting the technology in place, getting your team members on board with your message and your goals of transformation for the customer.
I love that, especially because there's so much that I want to pull out of that. So
yeah,
I love that because number one, like the customer experience afterwards is huge. Like you can find literally at least six figures if you were to just keep all the current customers that you had, like most businesses could, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's huge. In my hospital days, like in the administration side, like one of the biggest things that I did was improve profits while improving quality care. And that, proper follow-up was huge with the existing, patients that we would have. Huge, huge, huge. I also think it's really important what you're saying here about executing. So tell me kind of like, I mean, I don't know if this is just my personal bias, but like if we just stay stuck in examining our mindset and we're not executing, like that's a big problem that I personally see a lot. So I love that you're talking about executing. Like what else is something that you see standing in the way of businesses like taking action and doing that full execution all the way till the end?
Yeah. And kind of to that point, I feel like there's two types of places that we get stuck. And one is, yes, just like you say, the mindset, the background work, the word isn't coming to me right now, but the thinking, the strategy part of it. And then the flip side to that is diving into the execution too soon and getting caught up in the technical details. And well, why is my website, I want this to be pink instead of purple, and it needs to do this. And I think that we have a tendency to kind of get ourselves stuck in both places. But if you can force yourself to kind of step back and then dive in, and then step back and dive in. And I like to use the analogy of, in aviation, different elevations. So if you're at a kind of a 30,000 foot view of things, that's more the strategy, the vision. And then diving into the execution is kind of like the 1,000 foot view. You're way down close to the ground. You're looking at the details. And if you can force yourself to kind of go back and forth between those two and not stay in one place for too long, that's how you will be able to get past where you get stuck. Because ultimately we end up getting stuck at one of those places. If you're in strategy in 30,000 foot view mode, you come to a point where you end up overthinking and you start questioning what your plan is, and you can analyze all day long. But until you put something down on paper, until you actually have something physical, and by that I mean a website or a product or an interaction with a customer that you can get metrics and analytics on, you're just still making guesses, and you're not guesses, they're educated guesses, but you're still in theoretical mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've so seen that, like with my clients, they're either a lot better at the fine details and they get stuck there, like just like you said, the website colors, or they're so overthinking and really big picture. And I think personally, what has worked well for my clients is to bring in somebody into your team that is the opposite of what you are, right? Like, so if you're huge on visionary, like getting someone to handle some of those details that like are almost impossible for you.
Absolutely. Yep. And that is key. And two, I think, I mean, and depending on, budget, obviously you have a different number of team members you can bring on, or a different amount that you can pay people. And so I think, yes, finding someone who has the opposite skill that you do is critical. And then a step beyond that point is to bring someone who is able to transition between the two. That doesn't mean they have to be 100% technical because you've got someone that's 100% technical. Or they don't have to be 100% strategic because you hopefully will have someone that is 100% strategic, but someone who's good at navigating, being the, I use a lot of aviation analogies, so being the navigator, so to speak, someone who can, who's really good at taking all these different pieces at different levels and bringing them together.
Mm-hmm. Love it. I love that. And that takes a lot of that, like, redirection work from you, which is huge.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to go back because you sort of glossed over this, but I want to just like dig a little bit more into this topic and like the whole piece about the technology, because I see this a lot, especially when people are chasing the latest, greatest technology, right? So like, I have no funnel, but I want to do a messenger bot with a text message, like notification update, right? But they have nothing, right? So tell us kind of like how you work that system between laying the foundation and then adding the technology, and where the role of the technology really is.
Absolutely. So I am a tech geek, and, like you, I have been very into chatbots. It's something that I have no trouble diving in. I see a new technology and I just want to use it and unpack it and dig it apart. So I even have to remind myself of this. And I think that a lot of people that are technically inclined or like new trendy things that happen, we can just dive in and forget that, we have to have a foundation here. And that's really, at the end of the day, if you look at something like a messenger bot or, a certain piece of software that's going to help you put together a funnel or a project management tool, at the end of the day, that is just all that they are. They're tools. They're just a vehicle to help us facilitate the relationship that we're creating with our customers. So the tools are great and they help us make a lot of advances. They make our lives easier. They make our clients' lives easier. They help us communicate better with our clients and give our clients more of what they need and what they want. But that's just it. They're just tools. So we really have to have a solid foundational understanding of marketing basics, going back to the basics, because take away the technology, take away the tools, the fancy gadgets of the moment, and you have to have a foundation to work off of. You could think of it, I guess, kind of like getting married. You know, people get caught up in the wedding and putting together this fancy party and everything, and we're forgetting to make sure that we have a solid relationship as a couple before that happens. The same is true with marketing. Make sure that you know yourself, that you really have a strong understanding of your business, the value you provide for people, what makes you different, what makes you stand out. Know your customer. Make sure that you really understand their pain points, the transition that they're looking for to get from problem A, you know, their problem A to the solution, which is Z, what that picture looks like for them. And then it's using the technology and the tools to communicate with that, to communicate those things to them. So it's just about forcing yourself to step back. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's putting a rubber band on your wrist. And if you get too into the nitty gritty and the tech, which, like I said, admittedly, I love. So I have to remind myself of this often, that, okay, wait a second, let's go back and look at the basics. Is this tool really enhancing the relationship, or is it just noise? Is it getting in the way?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. That's a good question. I love that. And I think too, like how I usually teach the addition of the tools is kind of like, do your funnel first, right? Like if it's the first time you're running a webinar, like do the straight webinar first, and then you can add like text message or reminders and the bot, right? But the webinar itself is a big enough project for you to focus on for the first time, just leaving it as basic as possible. And then you can add that. And then also you have nothing to compare to, right? So is it adding to the customer experience? Is it adding to the bottom line? If you don't have something to compare it to, then it's really hard to tell if it's adding to the equation or just taking up time. Absolutely.
Yeah. And baseline analytics and data are so critical. You have to have some place to start. And I think that you can't just dive in and expect, you know, we in this society, we kind of have this instant gratification, and online marketing. In the online marketing world, we have a tendency to look at, oh, wow, look at all these things you can do, and you can have this pop up and you can do that. And we look at that and we make it seem so simple and so easy to put that together. But we have to just restrain ourselves, and we have to take it down to the simplest level to get your baseline analytic to know, okay, is this product even what the customers want? And I see people that go through all this work of putting up a funnel and optimizing it and trying to pick over, you know, conversion rates on one specific landing page. And it turns out that it's the product itself. It's not what the customers even want. So yeah, it's very critical to just do it as simple as possible first, and then grow on that. It's a constant evolution. And that's what your funnel should be, an evolution. Your product, your marketing should be a constant evolution.
Love that. Oh my gosh. Everything about that statement. Especially, let me just go back to, you know, the stressing over a single number. So I think that's a huge, huge piece of where people tend to get stuck, right? Like, oh my God, my landing page is converting at XYZ, or it is, you know, like it's that single focus rather than the bird's eye view, like going back to your analogy, right?
And I don't fault people for that, because that is something tangible to grasp onto. And when there's so many points to evaluate, it's very easy to go, oh, conversion rate, I know what that means. Let me look at that number and, figure out why this number isn't exactly what it's supposed to be. And so, you know, I think that's just human nature to grasp onto something that we can comprehend and go with it. That's where I stress the importance of having team members or working with an outside person that has just a really solid foundation in marketing in general and isn't, the funnel expert of the moment. So that person can strip away those numbers for a moment. Yes, it's important to look at those numbers and they'll take you there when they're ready, but to understand how all of the moving pieces fit together so that they can look at that one conversion rate and go, yeah, I think eventually we want to work on this, but that's not the piece. That's not what the holdup is. If you look at in the entire customer journey, if you look at the steps that people are taking through your business, there's something else there that might stand out where things are falling off. And someone else might be able to identify that for you if you're not able to take the step back. If you feel overwhelmed, like, well, I don't know where this is happening. I don't know why people aren't taking this action. Someone else might be able to help you get that perspective.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just so much like, when we're so close to our business, like we can sometimes just be way too close to it to really see the whole thing. And I think that's a great point. And totally, we've all had those moments where we get stressed out about a single landing page conversion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I shared it here or not, but a few weeks ago I did a challenge launch, and the challenge launch ended up doing really well. But in the beginning of the challenge launch, I was like, oh my God, my landing page conversion is so low. And I run ads, so I was running it to cold traffic, which was expected, but I was still unhappy. So I decided to create a test, and I was teaching my clients, like, in this situation, you want to create a test. Like, you don't necessarily want to change everything because then you kind of don't know what worked, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, too many variables.
Mm-hmm. So I ended up doing a test, and the original page ended up performing exponentially better than the test. And the only difference in the conversion rate happened because it was a deadline, right? Like, you couldn't get into the challenge after the set date, and there was like a countdown timer and everything, right? But changing no other variables, having that countdown timer there really helped to increase the conversions. And I thought to myself, like, see, like, if I would have just changed everything and gotten all stressed out about this, rather than saying, I'm just going to perform a test, I'm just going to see if it's the button being under the, the thing or not. And it ended up all working out fine. However, like, it was just one step in the whole funnel too. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the whole thing, is like, there's just so many moving pieces. And when we're so close to it and we're like just checking on the back end real quick and we happen to see a number, we're like, oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And you hit on that. We're kind of our own worst enemy sometimes. You could have something that is so close to working, and because you have a little bit of anxiety about why it's not working and kind of tweak the wrong thing, you could end up throwing the entire thing out of whack. And so that's why, we have to just have patience, and we have to be able to take some deep breaths and really step back and try and get as much perspective as possible before we go and tinker with things. I think of it as tinkerers. My husband is an engineer, and so he can tinker with something all day long, anything mechanical all day long. Well, the same is true for marketers when it comes to their funnels. So we have to just kind of resist that temptation and try and bring more data and more perspective to it at the same time.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned patience. Like, when I run Facebook ads, and so when I am either helping people with ads or coaching people on it, they're like, what's the number one thing that I need? Like, what's the magic thing? And I'm like, patience. And they hate me for it, but it's so true, right?
Yeah, exactly. And excuse me. And I think not getting comfortable with patience, but not settling for oh, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Patience, but not passiveness, I guess, is the right way to put that. You know, you have to be patient and let things work, but always having kind of a little bit of a skeptical eye on things, like, okay, why this, I see what this is doing, and I'm going to stand back and observe it right now. I'm not going to do anything to it right now, but why is it doing this? And kind of always look at it with a critical mind and try and figure out why before you touch anything.
Yeah, so true. So true. Love it. So, is there anything else that you think is really important for our listeners here to kind of know as they're, creating their businesses and really trying to get their programs into more people's hands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think, I kind of preach this over and over, and I think that is just really going back to the basics, really trying to uncover what is, how much do you truly understand the basics of marketing, which all it is understanding behaviors, knowing how customers react and human behavior, why they make decisions, why they purchase the things that they do, and knowing your business and yourself and being really strong in your values and what benefit that you provide for people. And just really focusing on that, knowing, and once you have the confidence in that and know those things and put that at the foundation of everything you do in your marketing, then adding the technology, adding the tools to facilitate that relationship becomes much, much easier and much more fun once you do that. So really just trying to keep that perspective, going back and forth between the 30,000 foot big picture strategic view and the 1,000 foot view, and not getting comfortable in either one of those places, because they need constant evaluation and reevaluation.
Mm-hmm. Love that. So what is one action that people can take this week to help them to take that business to the next level?
I think the best thing that someone can do for their marketing is to, and I love this concept by Donald Miller, and it's called the story brand. And basically it's the idea that if you think about, every movie has this sort of formula that it follows to convey this story to people. People love stories. We're all captivated by stories. And so this concept is to basically discover what the story is of your business. And it starts out with the main character has a problem. And, there's all these different routes that the main character could take. They have a desire for something, and they could go all these different directions, and they struggle and they struggle and they struggle. And then a hero comes in, and your business is the hero. And you basically take this customer under your wing, and you can take them to the place of transformation. And I think getting clear on that for your business and creating that narrative and then applying that to all of your marketing will do wonders for the response that you'll get from people and the amount of connection that you can create for people. So I would definitely suggest checking that out. It's Donald Miller Story Brand. Just spend an hour this week going through that framework and putting that together for your business, and use that in all of the marketing copy that you write, and you'll see a huge transformation.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us and having an amazing conversation. Where can people find out more about you, Kelly?
Yeah, and thanks so much for having me. It's etc.com/impact. Let me just double check that for you. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yep, etc.com/impact. And I have a free video series there. It's 6 steps to elevate your marketing impact. So you can feel free to grab that and learn a little bit more.
Awesome. So excited to have everybody go and check that out. Thank you for being here. Thanks for chatting with us. And I will see you, everybody, on next week's episode,
where we're going to be talking about something really important. It's called thought leadership, and it's exactly how you really stand out online, how you differentiate yourself from the competition, how your ideas can magnetize and attract the right people, as well as create consistent results repeatably for your clients. It's a huge, really important topic that I'm going to be building out some training around inside of one of my programs. And I wanted to give you guys here a sneak peek at what that looks like. So, join us next week on Monday for that episode on thought leadership. Also, if you can't get enough of the trainings and you want more support, come and join us for Facebook Lives. I've been doing daily Facebook Lives at 10 a.m. Monday through Friday on my business page, marianacruiz.com. Not .com. Mariana C. Ruiz is my business page. And we'll link to it in the show notes, but come and join us for the lives. You have an opportunity to ask me anything that's going on for you, as well as I do teaching on specific topics. So come and join us, Mariana C. Ruiz business page, and I'll see you next week in our episode about thought leadership. Head on over to impactdrivenentrepreneur.com, where you can find an arsenal of videos, blog posts, and previous podcast episodes to help you increase your profit and impact. Again, impactdrivenentrepreneur.com, and click on blog. Enjoy.